guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 121, and that's the show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show, so let's get started. I have 23 comics this week, so it's a pretty big amount, so like I said, let's get started. Number 23 is Fathom Blue, issue 5. So, I haven't been loving this series since issue 2, because I really did like issue 1. I remember it was like really close to my top 5. I liked the story. The artwork, needed some work, and it's still very sketchy. Could use a lot more detail. Some of the proportions are off. Coloring's pretty good, though. But yeah, Fathom Blue, I feel like, has lost a lot of steam. What I liked about issue 1 is that you learned about every character and you were following their journey. They were connected to Earth, but they were also blue. And here it's going against the government, and you really don't get to see the team as individual characters. And that's the point that's bored me from this series, but the reason I've been continuing picking it up is because there's only 6 issues, and I have one more issue left of the series, so I gave this 2 stars. I wasn't too impressed. Moving on to number 22, which is a new series I tried out, but it just wasn't my thing, and that was 6, issue 1. Now, I tried out Sunflower, which I actually think there's a picture of in here. Yep. Sunflower, issue 1 from 451 Media Group, and I loved it. It was my pick of the week, and I was like, alright, let me try some more comics from them. And I picked up 6, and I thought, oh, cool, like this military-type book. I thought it'd have a little bit more story, or character story, and it didn't really have that. It's mostly about this group of Marines. They're working together, they're hiding stuff, and then we learn that one of the wives of the dead Marine has this money and needs help. It's like from a cartel, this money, and she needs help, and that's pretty much the issue. And also, I didn't really like the artwork. I thought it was a bit too gritty. There's a lot of lines on their face, so yeah, it was a bit too gritty. Like, here's a good example. Thought there was way too many lines on his face, so wasn't a huge fan of the artwork either. So yeah, as a story I couldn't really get into. Also has a hefty price tag, $5, but it's a really big book, and also the cover is very thick, so it's definitely a good quality book, but I don't think it's worth the $5, and I couldn't really get into the story. So 6, issue 1, I probably won't get issue 2, and that gets 2 stars, and now it's number 22. Moving on to number 21, a book that has mostly been on my bottom, and that's Martian Manhunter, issue 6. I think this is the last issue I'm going to pick up. I want to try out the supposed issue of Miss Martian being in the series, but I don't know if I can wait that long. This is a pretty weird series I've been trying to get into, but I just can't. This book, you see Martian Manhunter split into 3 different people, and finally they come together in the end of this issue, and I'm like, that was not worth 6 issues of them trying to come together. And I understand it's more Martian Manhunter realizing who he is and his identity, but I felt like they could have done it in a more interesting way, and this is definitely more of a connection of him realizing that Earth is his home now, and not as much as Mars is his home. He's made mistakes, and that's where it ends. But the reason this was a bit higher than the other 2 on this list is because the artwork is really beautiful. I really do like the artwork for the series, and I think that's why I've stuck with it, but the story is just a little bit too out there for me. So Martian Manhunter issue 6 gets, I think, 2 stars, and I'm probably going to drop this series. If I see that Miss Martian's making an appearance, I'm going to try to pick up that issue, but probably digitally, not printed. Alright, so now we're moving on to number 20, which is I Hate Fairyland, issue 2. I tried out issue 1, and I thought it was an okay issue. I like the concept a lot of this little girl, who's not a little girl anymore, but stuck in a little girl's body, and she's rude as hell, kills people, and I thought that was really funny. But then in this issue, I realized I don't think I want to pick up an ongoing series about this. I'm just not invested in the actual plot. Like, even though I think the character's funny, and it's kind of a cool situation, and obviously I love Scotty Young's artwork, I don't feel invested to the series, so that's why I gave this 2 stars. I didn't really care about the plot and this, wizard, whatever her name is, queen, wanting to kill the little girl. I didn't really care about that. So yeah, it's a worldly book, but the plot it's not sticking me with this. It's more of a comedy book, and for me it's a little bit harder just to pick up comedy books because the plot doesn't progress as much, and it's more of just there for the humor. So I Hate Fairyland I Hate Fairyland issue 2 gets 2 stars. Alright, I think we're up to, let me check. We are up to number 19, which is Earth 2 Society, issue 6. This is another book that I'm not in love with, but I really like Lois Lane as Red Tornado, so I've been picking it up. I think after this issue I'm going to get it digitally, though. I won't drop it, but I'm going to get it digitally. That way just, save some room with the printed comics. But yeah, Earth 2 Society. With this issue we get to see that Jimmy Olsen's turned bad. He's this godlike character. We see how he's turned bad throughout the issue, and he actually scars Huntress's face. It was an accident, but he does scar Huntress's face. And now Huntress is becoming Batman in a lot of ways, where she is darkened from her past, darkened from her grandfather and father dying, and is kind of motivated on this mission because of it. And now she might be teaming up with Jimmy Olsen to try to get revenge in a way. So that's what happens in the issue. And I thought that was pretty interesting. There are some interesting plots in this issue, but the world needs to be fleshed out a bit more, I think, because even the artwork, like the backgrounds, it's just clouds. It's just like random backgrounds. You really don't know what Earth 2 looks like. And even though I think the actual characters look good in the art, the backgrounds need a lot of work. It's just colors. And that goes for the writing too, is that the characters are okay for the most part. We've been following them, and the Huntress had a good moment in this issue, but you don't really understand what new world they've been in. I mean, this has been 6 issues, and I still don't really know the state of their world. It just feels, alright, it's kind of post-apocalyptic, alright, yeah. And then they do a lot of time jumps in the series, so I'll continue to pick it up for Lois Lane, and some of the character stuff are okay, but this definitely doesn't blow my mind, and I don't really recommend the series. I'm just picking it up for certain characters, but it's not a great series. So Earth 2 Society, issue 6, gets 2.5 stars. That's number 19. Moving on to number 18, I'm finally picking up Star Wars, but Vader Down issue 1 is a bit lower on my list. And that's mostly because of the artwork. I don't have it with me because I did read it digitally, but it's a bit darker, and I'm not a big fan of that style of artwork. And I guess the reason it's a bit lower is because it's more of an action issue. There's not a lot of story progression, even for someone that hasn't read Darth Vader. I kind of understood everything that was going on, and it was just, this kind of back and forthness. It was a point A to point B type issue. It's an establishing issue. For me, it didn't blow my mind, but I thought it was an okay issue. I gave it 3 stars. I'm going to continue Vader Down. This is kind of my pathway to try to get into the Star Wars comics. And to at least read Star Wars. I don't know if I'll be reading Darth Vader, but I want to at least read the Star Wars series after Vader Down. And of course I'll be reading Darth Vader during Vader Down. Alright, let's go on to number 17, which is Beauty, issue 4. I think this is the lowest this series has ever been. I love Beauty, but this was a pretty slow issue. It's more of our 2 detectives kind of finding this woman to team up with, and that's pretty much it. It's a fight and trying to not be gunned down, and that's the issue. I love the artwork. I mean, the artwork's beautiful right here. This is actually a really good panel where there's this like laser from the gun, like the point, hopefully you can see on the camera, and then you actually see her get shot in the next page. So the artwork is gorgeous in this book, but I thought the story was pretty slow. It doesn't really progress the Beauty story as much as I wanted to. It doesn't really focus on our 2 main detectives and like their characters. So Beauty issue 4 gets 3 stars. Still gorgeous artwork, but this was a bit of a slower issue. Alright, I think we're up to number 16. Number 16 is Power Cubed issue 3. This is a book, I think it's a mini-series actually, that I've been picking up because there's this thing that interests me about it. Like, I like the idea of it. I think it has a cool concept, but at the same time, it's not original at all. It feels average, but there's some in there that just keeps making me like, hey, you know, that was actually kind of interesting. I think it's the characters more than anything. Like, I like the main character. I like that he found out his father is an alien. I like the little cube that he's using as a weapon. And, I mean, there's a lot of generic things about this. Like, the girlfriend gets kidnapped. The villain tells his plan. And even the way the villain looks is very generic. But I think, you know, try it out. If you can find this at a cheap price, try out Power Cube, because there's something that I do enjoy about it. Like, even though it's not original at all, if you have room for, like, a non-original series, pick up Power Cube. I don't know, I'm finding some interest in it. Just not really blown away by it. Alright, let's move on to number 15. Which is Savior, issue 8. Now, I loved issue 1 of Savior. And that's why I'm picking up printed, because I really enjoyed issue 1. And I like the concept of it. And then ever since then, it's been pretty boring. And not the series I expected. Then I read this issue. And we find out that this boy killed one of the reporters to prove that our John Doe is a savior. To prove that he is pretty much God reincarnated, and he believes that everyone can become God. Like, everyone's been reading Revelations wrong. It's not that God will come back. Everyone becomes God. Which I thought was an interesting concept. And we find out that, yeah, he actually kind of is God, because the woman that died when he touched her did survive. But that's the cliffhanger in the end. We don't actually find out what happens in the end. It seems like Todd McFarlane wants this to be like a procedural. He goes to different towns and, like, he saves people. But at the same time, I thought they could have done a lot more with this concept. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting this. I thought the secondary characters would be more important, and they kind of aren't. So I didn't love the open-ended ending. I know it's because they might want to do more series, but at the same time, from what I was hearing in the back, you know, when they say a little information about the book, and that is like, oh, if you support it, you know, maybe we'll do another issue. I was like, honestly, I don't want to see that story. Like, I wanted to see them in this town and explore more of that story. I didn't think they explored it to its fullest. Even the reporter character I found really interesting in issue 1, and they didn't really utilize her that often. So Savior issue 8 had some interesting concepts, and artwork is still gorgeous, and that's why it's been higher than the other books. But I was pretty disappointed by the ending. So I give it 3 stars. It's an okay book, and I don't really recommend you getting Savior as a whole, unless you could get it for a really cheap price, or if you like the artwork. Alright, so let's go to number 14, which is Batman and Robin Eternal, issue 7. I feel like I haven't been enjoying this series as much as everyone else on Comic Frontline has. I know everyone on Comic Frontline, you go check out their live shows, have been really enjoying the series. And I like the series, but for some reason I liked Batman Eternal a little bit more. Now, I think the series is a lot more consistent. Like, the artwork's more consistent, and even the storytelling's a bit more consistent. But when Batman Eternal was good for me, it was really good. And here it's just been kind of this lackluster. And so every issue is like, okay. And this issue, it still doesn't really progress the story that much. It's Dick Grayson teaming up with Cassandra and Harper to try and find out more about the mother. It feels like more of a one-shot issue where it's, again, a point A to point B, kind of getting closer to the mother storyline, but at the same time not getting closer to it. It's not really a clue. It's like, yeah, we feel that we're almost close to finding out who the mother is and what this whole thing's about, but we're really not that close. And I guess because it is a weekly series. But I will say what I was impressed with, I did like the dancing aspect, especially with Cassandra, because she's a martial artist. She knows a lot about the body and how it moves. So I always think martial arts and dancing is very similar. So I like that aspect of it. The artwork was really well done too. I think this is actually the cleanest artwork that they've had, and it didn't feel rushed. I really enjoyed the artwork overall. So overall, I'm going to give Batman and Robin Eternal issue 7 3.5 stars. It hasn't blown my mind yet, but still, again, consistently an okay book for me. And hopefully it'll pick up some steam with the plot. Alright, let's move on to number 13, which is Star Wars Kanan, issue 8. I thought this issue was an improvement from last issue. Last issue I thought was a little bit more about action. Here it was too, but I think you get to see Kanan and his master's relationship a little bit more. You see that the master is also a broken type character, and a lot of the Padawans don't even want her as a master because she's too broken, and Kanan's like, no, I feel a connection to her. And there's actually some really cool fight scenes and throughout the whole issue. Like, I really like this bomb scene where there's these two type of liquids and she uses the force to make them explode, so I thought that was pretty cool. And overall, I thought it was a pretty good character development between these two. Now, the reason I feel like the series hasn't gotten higher, A, I don't watch Star Wars Rebels, so it's a little harder for me to connect to it, but I do love Greg Weisman's writing, so that's why I've been picking it up. And two, I don't know how far they can go with this. How far can you tell Kanan's origins? I mean, do you really need this many issues to focus on this character? I kind of wish this series became just a Star Wars Rebels series. That way you could focus on other characters and their history also. Maybe it will become that, and hopefully Weisman will continue writing it, but I don't know how long they could just focus on this one character. I don't know if he has that much story to tell, but I was definitely entertained with this issue, and we'll see where the arc goes and where the future goes with the series. Alright, so let's move on. Next is number 12, which is Extraordinary X-Men, issue 2. This is a lackluster issue, I felt, honestly. Let me say the positives and the negatives about Extraordinary X-Men in this issue. The positives, I thought, I really like Magic and Colossus's story. I feel like it's something different, and it's great to see their relationship and their family relationship a little bit more, because they've been separated for a really long time and they're finally on good terms. So that I like. The artwork's gorgeous. That's why it's a bit higher than the other books. Really like the artwork, especially when they use their powers. Let me get Eugene right here. Great artwork there. So I really like Ramus's art for this title. But the story in general, I feel, is a bit generic. We've seen a lot of it before. Old Man Logan, time travel. Oh, a doomed future. We've seen that a billion times from the X-Men. But there are some unique stuff, like the camping in limbo. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And that's all connected to magic. So Magic and Colossus is the best part of the series so far. And I would say Jean Grey, I really like her story too, but a lot of her story is repetitive. How many times have we seen an X-Men just try to live a normal life and like, oh no, everyone hates mutants. Every single person hates mutants. And there's no human that likes mutants. And now they have to go back to the X-Men. So you only get to see the X-Men interacting with each other. But I will say there was a funny part in this issue where she saves an Inhuman thinking it was a mutant, and the Inhuman's scared of her because, like, oh, mutant, and he's an Inhuman that looked exactly like a mutant. So it goes back to this, you know, this thing of everyone hating mutants just because. So, I mean, I understand the idea of it, but I would like to see some progression of some humans liking mutants. And I mentioned that with the issue 1, and it's still a continuous thing, because it really is pointed out here. I know it's going back to the roots of the X-Men, but I kind of want something different. We've seen this a billion times. So I like the roster a lot for the book. There are some certain moments I like about it, but there are a lot of repetitive moments about it also. So Extraordinary X-Men issue 2 gets 3.5 stars. Alright, so next is number 11, which is Titans Hunt, issue 2, which is a bit lower than I think issue 1 was. Now, Titan Hunt, I felt like this was more a point A to point B issue. We get to see a lot of characters in this issue, which I kind of wish they focused on maybe 3 characters. I thought it was a little bit too many characters in this issue. But we get to see, like, where Roy is. He's New 52 Roy. He's looking for this girl, and he's drunk, and it's like, oh, New 52 Roy. I'm so tired of you. I want to see pre-New 52 Roy. And maybe we will get him with this Titans Hunt thing. But scenes I liked with this issue is, Grayson and Alfred's discussion in this issue. It's cool just to see them talk to each other. I like the ending for the most part with Aqualad, Grayson, and Wonder Girl kind of meeting up and being in a fight, so that was interesting. But my favorite part of the issue actually was with Mal and Bumblebee. Seeing that they're married, some hints to her, you know, being Bumblebee, calling her Bumblebee, and I felt like they were the most grounded story, and I liked their story a lot. So the other stories, again, were okay, and I think this series is going to get more exciting once we actually see the team together. I mean, I like stories that we can actually see character moments and see them alone, but I feel like this is the type of series, again, that's going to be better once they're all together and we figure out what this plot's about. So Titans Hunt issue 2 gets 3.5 stars. So I think we're up to 10. Number 10, I think. Yeah, we're up to number 10, which is Star-Lord issue 1. This is a book that I didn't expect that this was the plot. Now, I did read all Star-Lord, the run with Humphreys, I did read the run with Humphreys last volume, and I liked it for the most part, especially once Kitty got into the series. I really liked it, and especially after Black Vortex, it became really good. So, of course, I was going to pick up this volume to see where it went, and I was like, alright, it's going to probably focus on where Star-Lord's at now, not him being Star-Lord. And I thought, honestly, the series, when it was first announced, it could have focused more on Kitty having an ongoing series, because she is the new Star-Lord. But here we're actually getting to see his past, and how he became a pilot, how he, stole stuff, and that's the story, is, learning more about that, and that he started out as a mechanic, and of course you get to see his rash side. Then he steals this ship, and he goes into space, and he does something that other people couldn't, but he messes up because he's Peter. So, and that's the end of the issue. And I had a fun time with it. I thought it was a very solid issue. But at the same time, again, it was weird when I picked it up. I was like, alright, this is going to be like 2 pages of it. And then I found out, wait, they're actually starting the series about his past. And they didn't really advertise this book right, I thought. Because I didn't hear anything about this. I thought it was just picking up right where Star-Lord is in All New, All Different. And they're not. It's his origin story. This feels like more of a mini-series than an ongoing. Now, I don't know how long they're going to concentrate on his origin story. If it's important for future storylines, I don't know. But overall, I was entertained by the book. I was just very surprised by the book because I wasn't expecting this story. So Star-Lord issue 1 gets 3.5 stars. I thought it was pretty good. I'll definitely pick up the next issue, but I don't know where it's gonna go. And not in a way where it's like, it was so mysterious. It's just like, I don't know what direction they're going with it. So Star-Lord issue 1 gets 3.5 stars. Alright, so we're up to number 9, which is Spider-Woman issue 1. I was going to say like 12, but we are up to issue 1 again with All New, All Different. And I like this book. I know a lot of people weren't excited for Spider-Woman to be pregnant, but I liked it. I like that she has to kind of change her life, and she's not a hero right now, but you still see heroics. You see Porcupine, you see Ben. They're all trying to help her. They're trying to help Jessica with her missions while she is pregnant. And it's kind of cool to see the different stages of her pregnancy. At this point, she knows that she's too pregnant to fight. But there was a point where she thought, oh, I can still be a hero and be pregnant. And I really like Carol in this book, too, being the overprotective best friend, where she makes her have exoskeleton, whatever it is, over her belly to try to protect the baby, because you knew she was going to go in action and she wants to protect the baby, and then saying that she was going to be the godmother, them getting frozen yogurt / ice cream. There's a lot of fun parts with Carol just being the best friend, which I like about this book in general, but I thought that was cool. I guess the negative towards this issue and why it's a little lower than I expected is that the ending was a little weird. She goes to this, crazy alien hospital, which I understand why Carol did it, but at the same time, if she's having a regular baby, she can, she can probably go to a regular hospital. And I guess because she has superpowers, that's why she didn't do it. I don't know. So I don't understand the reason why she had to go to an alien hospital. But now she's trapped and Skrulls are ready to attack, and she's probably going to play hero, and I'm excited to see that, but it's kind of a weird cliffhanger. Spider-Woman issue 1 gets 4 stars. I thought it was pretty solid, and I'm actually really excited to see where this series goes, and to see how this changes Jessica's character, because I feel this is something that I didn't expect for Jessica. Motherhood. I didn't expect it, because she's a character that doesn't really seem to like kids, and she even says that in the book. Alright, so number 8 is Astonishing Ant Man issue 2. I thought this was definitely an improvement from issue 1. I was pretty upset with how they handled Cassie in issue 1. But after seeing the solicits, I'm a bit, optimistic about that story. But also, this, didn't have Cassie in it, so I didn't have to think about that story. And I felt this played on cliches a bit more. Like, there's a lot more laughter for me in this issue. I thought the humor was really good, and they used that with tropes, like, there's this villain telling his life story, and then Scott's like, I don't understand why villains don't do that anymore. And we see Darla, who's in the issue, punch him in the face, like, that's why. Because it's distracting, and that's why you do it. And that's also another thing I liked about this issue is Darla. We haven't seen Darla in a while, and that was a complaint from a lot of fans who liked FF a lot, and saw that Scott was in a good relationship. Is like, oh, well, how did that end? And we found out that Scott just left her without breaking up with her, and that is very Scott. We've seen that happen throughout his life, especially with Cassie's. Like, he kind of just leaves to protect her. He kind of just breaks up with Darla because to protect her. So I like the theme, and hopefully it'll play out with Scott realizing, and he kind of realizes in this issue that he can't do that. He can't just lead people and take shortcuts. He has to talk to them. And this issue is a lot about talking and talking about your feelings, and I like that. And again, I like Darla. I thought it was kind of an interesting twist that she tricked him in the end because she had some spite against him and used him for her reality show. But at the same time also hired Scott to do some security work for her, so he's getting some money out of the deal. So yeah, I gave this a solid 4 stars. Astonishing Ant Man I thought was an improvement from issue 1, and we will obviously see where the series goes. Alright, so now we're up to number 7, which is Star Wars, issue 12. I did pick up Star Wars because I heard what happened in the issue, and I was like, I gotta pick up the series. And I wanted a jumping on point with this series because now I've seen all the movies. Check out Media Madness if you haven't. I've commentated all the movies with Jay, and I've seen them all now. And, I wanted to jump onto the series now that I actually know, that I can call myself a casual Star Wars fan. And I really enjoyed this issue because I'm a big Princess Leia fan from the movies after watching them. I really like her character. And something I've been waiting for is like her to utilize her Force a little bit more. And there's this awesome scene where we get to see Han, Chewbacca, and Princess Leia using a lightsaber, and it was amazing. And even the stuff that Leia says, like, oh, let the Force be with you, and then Han's like, I'd just rather use my gun. So there's a lot of great moments, and I like that, Leia and Han weren't really efficient with the lightsabers. They obviously didn't have training. They're just trying their hardest to use them. And there's some cool revelations in the issue with Han's wife that we know that it's not actually his wife, which I think we all could have guessed. And again, I've known some of the storylines that are going on because we talk about it on Frontline Live all the time, so I know the storylines going on with it. And it was honestly a really good jumping on point here. And the action was good, the artwork's beautiful, and yeah, that scene was amazing. So that's my number 7, and hopefully I can continue to pick up Star Wars now. Alright, so number 6 is Invincible, issue 125. This is a really good moment between father and son, because we get to see that from the last issue, Invincible does confront Omni-Man and says, hey, I know your plan to, like, destroy Earth, and to kind of use me to destroy Earth. I don't like that. So he describes everything that has happened in the future and how he could avoid doing the mistakes that he did, and he doesn't do so. Most of the issue is a fight between Omni-Man and Invincible, and Invincible loses, but in the end, Omni-Man is trapped, so technically Invincible wins in the end, but he does get beat up a bit. So Omni-Man's trapped, and yeah, what did happen in the future issues, what we've seen happens here. Omni-Man's able to think, and he realizes that he doesn't want to take over Earth. He wants to be with his son and with his wife, and he realizes Earth has changed him. I really like this issue because what I liked about issue 24 is that was very much the beginning of Invincible. Then this really covered not just the beginning, it covered the middle with the Viltrumite War, I can never pronounce that, but Tritium War, which was like issue 70 through whatever. So we get to see kind of the middle of the series, and hopefully with issue 126, which is the last part of the reboot, we'll see the later part of the series and how it's, how Mark would deal with that now with everything going on with Robot, probably. That's what my guess would be, the concentration would be on. But yeah, I like this issue a lot. I thought it was really solid, and I've been enjoying this arc so far. I really like seeing Mark look at his past and trying to change it, and hopefully not stepping on too many butterflies along the way, with the butterfly effect. We don't even know what this is. It might not even him being in the past changing anything. It probably is just like this mind thing going on. So Invincible issue 125 gets 4 stars, and that's number 6. So let's move on to number 5, which is Miss Marvel issue 1, which I thought was a pretty solid start. What I liked about this book is kind of the status quo changes. We get to see Kamala has different friends, kind of. She has Zoe as a friend now, who really grew in that last arc, which I was really happy with that. I'm excited to see where Zoe's character goes. Also really liked her character design also. And also you see that Kamala's, I guess a little bit more popular in school. She's kind of getting used to balancing a hero life with her Kamala life. And she's an Avenger now. But she notices because she's an Avenger, she's missed a lot of things, like Bruno getting a girlfriend. And I don't know how to feel about that storyline, because I'm just like, it adds drama, good drama, but it's like, I want to see Bruno and Kamala together. And I also wonder how this is going to affect their teammateness. Like, does she need a civilian helping her now that she's an Avenger? I think these are questions they're going to have to really go through with future issues, which I'm sure they will. And also now that she's noticed that someone's using her identity on these billboards. So she's going to have to try to figure out who's doing this and how she's missed this. How has she missed this idea? So there's a lot of interesting plots that have been developed here. And again, you see the new status quo of Miss Marvel, but it's not much of a jumping on point. If you didn't read the last volume of Miss Marvel, I think you'd be a little bit more confused for this volume. I think you do have to read the previous volume to fully understand this one. But still, I thought this was a very solid issue, and I still can't wait to see more for Miss Marvel, the series in general. Alright, so let's move on to number 4, which is Tomboy issue 1, right? Yes. Tomboy issue 1 from Action Labs, which I wish I got the printed book. I was really impressed by this book. I didn't know much about it. I just saw a description of it. I'm like, alright, cool. I'll pick up, this Indy title. It looks kind of cool. And then I read it, and I was really impressed. It's about this girl who, her father works for the police, like he's a medical examiner, and then her grandfather is an ex-cop, and it's her birthday, and she wants to celebrate it. She has a good friend that she kind of has a crush on, but he's like a brother to her, so she doesn't want to say anything. And it's her birthday, and she's a bit upset that he hasn't texted her. And then we learn in the issue that he died. He was shot by somebody, by the police. And now our main character is very curious, like, how did this happen? Like, who are these people? And something comes over her, some magic thing, and she kills these 2 cops. So she gets really nervous, and she has her friend's friendship bracelet with her, and she goes to her grandfather's, like, help me, and she has blood all over her hands. I was really impressed by this book. I think it established characters really well, it established a story really well. Artwork was really beautiful. I don't have the book with me, but I really liked how they utilized the blood. I liked the character designs for the most part. I thought it fit the story very well. And that cliffhanger really made me excited to read more. So I'll definitely will definitely read more of Tomboy in the future, and hopefully get the printed issue next week. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I guess the only negative I have towards the issue is that I thought it was a little out of place, this magic thing happening. I thought she was just going to have revenge for the sake of her, like, revenge. I thought it was just going to be a character trait, but now it seems like more of this magical thing and more about a TV show. And I guess that's the part I'm not really sure about, but I still like the idea, and again, I really like the characters. So Tomboy issue 1 gets 4.5 stars, and that is number 4. Alright, so number 3 is Robin Hood Holiday Special 2015. I really enjoyed this book. I think Robin Hood has been totally on a roll. Last issue was great. It was my top 5, which actually came out last week, and now this is in my top 5 too, because it's really heartwarming. You get to see why Robin doesn't really like Christmas. It has to do with her mother and her family, and you see that the one Christmas gift that she did get from her mom was this mood ring, and that she always has it on her. And then you see that Marion obviously wants to celebrate Christmas, and Robin doesn't, because there's always this curse she feels on Christmas. And then she realizes, yeah, it's a curse, and, you know, kind of life always, like, hands you a bad deck of cards or a bad hand of cards. But Christmas is the day that you should celebrate your family and kind of forget about all that stuff. And then you see that Marion gives Robin, like, a moon ring also, not knowing that her mom gave her a moon ring as, like, one of the only Christmas gifts she's ever received. And then by the end, you see the year later where they are now, that all these people are in her life. And Robin has really grown, because she says that the reason, I guess, I'm scared to have all these people in my life is that it hurts if I ever lost them. But now she's open to having friends, which it took a long time for Robin to get to that point, because she's lost so much. So it was such a good character building issue, and it was finally just Marion and Robin kind of hanging out, being them. And I thought it had a really good message and really good artwork. It's the same artist who works on the regular Robin Hood series. And yeah, it was a really good issue of Robin Hood. So that's number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Huck, issue 1 from Image Comics. Now, I was really excited to read this issue because of the creative team, Millar and Albuquerque. Millar because of Kick-Ass and Jupiter Legacy, and Albuquerque because of American Vampire. But I didn't know anything about this series. I just knew it was Huck. That's all I knew. I just knew the name of it. I didn't know the plot. But when I opened it up and I actually read the story, it was really heartwarming, because you learn that Huck is the small town guy who was left on a doorstep, you know, as a kid. And there's a note saying, "Please love him." And these 2 women, they take him in and tell him that to live life, you should do something good every day. And it seems like because there's this older woman telling a story to a younger woman about who Huck is. And this younger woman says, "Oh, is he slow?" And he's like, "No, you know, he's special." And we see that he also has super strength. He also has, like, more physical ability. And this woman's learning more about him. And we see, you know, the heartwarming part is that he does help everybody every day for nothing. Not for recognition, not for a thank you, he just does it. And, you know, some small things he does is that he goes to, you know, drive-thru, and he pays for everyone's meal. He goes to a library, puts $45 that he earned to a random person. All these nice things that he does. Even the girl that is, I guess, going to be one of the main characters, she gets a gold chain back just because she lost it. So you see that he's a guy who, again, just wants to make people happy, and that makes him happy. And then the end of the issue kind of gets more to worldly things that happen in life. You know, there's these women that were kidnapped in Nigeria, and he saves them from the people that kidnapped them. And he didn't want recognition. He didn't want the press to know. So he gives candy and says, "The one thing you have to do is not tell people who I am." And he runs off and, you know, goes home, goes to sleep. And then our main female character, who's been listening to these stories, is actually a press member and is told the world about Huck. And that's our big cliffhanger. And I was really impressed by this book, because it's really a breath of fresh air to see a hero who's not in spandex, doesn't really have superpowers. He's just doing good because he wants to. And just the small things he does is like, we need more people like this in the world. And then a really awesome cliffhanger of, again, this guy who does not want recognition for the things he does. He just does it to do it. Now does have the spotlight on him. And what does he do for that point? And then Albuquerque's artwork is just amazing. It fits this title so well. I love Huck as a character, really like this world, and I'm excited to see kind of a brighter comic, honestly, and see, again, a character just to do things that are good just because, and I'm really excited to read more Huck, and again, to see where this goes. So Huck issue 1 hopefully will not be delayed for issue 2, and I give that 4.5 stars. Moving on to the last issue, number 1, I don't know why I said that. Moving on to number 1. Which is the Mighy Thor, issue 1. I was really looking forward to reading this book because when Jane was revealed to be Mighy Thor, I'm like, there is a lot of interesting things you could explore with that. Now, especially that she has cancer. And you see throughout this issue that Jane has many roles. She has a role as a senator in Midgard. She has a role of Thor in on Earth as even an Avenger. And now she's also being chased and being wanted in Asgard because of Odin. Odin is putting fear in everybody. And there's also this realm war going on. She might meet Loki soon. There's a lot of stuff going on. But in a good way. It didn't feel overcrowded. What I like about this issue is you see the morality of Jane, that, you know, she is dying, and every single time she picks up the hammer, she's dying even more because the chemotherapy is taken out of her, and she describes for, you know, a good 3 pages what it means to get chemotherapy, how it feels, and you feel for Jane. You know, I love the narration in this book, and the detail in this book. And it's a cool contrast. One of the great contrasts in this page is the third page where Jane introduces herself. So I'm Dr. Jane Foster, and believe it or not, I'm also the Mighy Thor. And you see that contrast of her being cold and getting chemotherapy and being weak. So really good contrast. And also something I really liked about Jane, which I forgot to mention in my in-depth review on my video, but one thing I really liked is like her references to Asgard mythology. Even though she is a human, she still knows a lot about Asgard. Even when she was talking about how cold she was, she said like where the frost giants live, she mentioned that. So I like that, and like how she's embraced her role as Thor and she's proud of it. I really like that. Yeah, it's just a great book with beautiful artwork. I mean, I could talk about many pages of how beautiful this artwork is, with the detail of even Jane as just Jane or Jane as Thor. Look at this, just beautiful here. So yeah, overall, it really impressed me. It made me care for Jane's character even more, where I already cared about her character from the last volume. It made me interested in her story, not just as Jane, but also as Thor, and there's just so much great setup in this one issue with gorgeous artwork. So the Mighy Thor issue 1 gets 4.5 stars, and that is my pick of the week. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about all the books this week. What was your pick of the week and your worst pick of the week? Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic and Comic Frontline. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also in the description below there's links for my comic book, Like Father Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father Like Daughter. And of course I'll have another Comic episode next week. I'll see you guys later. Bye.